Hi guys, welcome to the live stream. This is the first ever live stream that is being done on this channel. And I thought instead of a video this week, I would come on here and I would just open up the floor to any questions you guys might have about vet school or the application process. Hopefully we get some people asking some questions. If not, I prepared just kind of some topics that I can talk about, such as what I put on my vet school application, the process that I went through applying to vet school, and just kind of explaining that to you guys in hopes that it'll help. So I'll get started and I will introduce myself for those of you guys who are new here or who haven't watched any of my videos. I'm a second year vet student at the Ontario Veterinary College, and I got into vet school in 2019, and I get a lot of questions asking about the application process, so I figured I would make this video. Someone asked, which books do you recommend? Honestly, this is going to vary depending on the school you go to. A lot of my professors will recommend textbooks specifically for their classes. I found they haven't been necessary. In terms of books for the application process, I really liked the Rollins book. I will see if I can link it for you guys actually. I really liked that book, and I felt like it prepared me really well for the actual interview process to vet school. It's basically a book going through different case scenarios, different situations, and Roland talks about how he would proceed in those situations. The only thing that I will say is just keep in mind that the book is dated. So some of the opinions and some of the approaches that he uses are, like I said, outdated. So just keep that in mind. But I did find that book really helpful in terms of just thinking about how to answer specific questions that you're asked in your vet school interview. Oh, wow, you guys are asking questions. I'm so excited for that. I'm glad people are here. Okay, so how many hands-on hours did you have? And my GPA. Okay, yeah, so perfect. Basically for hands-on hours at OVC, there's no limit. So they don't tell you that you need a certain amount of hours to apply. They don't really put any like reference ranges for that. So I wasn't so focused on hours. I was focused more on the variety of experiences that I had. So I made sure that I kind of had a little bit of experience in a bunch of different fields of vet med. So I worked in a veterinary clinic and I shadowed the vets there. I worked in research and I worked in large animal. And then I also worked in like at a safari where I worked with exotic animals. So a lot of those jobs were summer jobs. So I didn't count them as volunteer experience. A lot of them I either counted as animal experience or I counted as work experience. But in general, I think the only category that I really tried to have a strong number of hours in was veterinary experience. And the reason I say that is just because you want to get two vet recommendations for your application, or at least that's how OVC is they want two letters of recommendations from a vet. So I felt like I needed to build a relationship with the vets that I was shadowing so that I could get good recommendations from them. Oh, and my GPA, yes. So the way OVC looks at their applicants is they will basically take your last two full-time semester averages and then 8 prerequisite courses. So my GPA, or my average for my last two full-time semesters and then my 8 prereqs, was an 88.8. And I believe the cutoff for an interview in my year was an 87.9. So I was a little bit above that interview cutoff. I'm 5'2" and have no muscle. Would you recommend joining a gym for farm experience? Well, if it makes you feel better, I'm 4'9.5", 4'10". So I'm also very tiny, and I haven't gone to a gym in years. And honestly, I find working with the cows and stuff to be completely manageable. The only thing is I have to use a stool sometimes. But yeah, honestly, it's not height reveal, I know, eh? Super tiny. But yeah, I think it's definitely manageable. You don't have to be super muscular. I mean, obviously, if you want to go into the large animal fields, it's going to help, but it's definitely not a requirement because I'm not. Um, what schools did I apply to? I only applied to OVC. The way that the OVC or the Canadian Vet School application process works is that you have to be a resident of the province of the school that you're applying to for a full year before you apply. So I'm an Ontario resident, and because of that, the only school that I could apply to was OVC. Um, how much leadership experience do you have? That's a really good question because I think that's part of the application that gets looked over, I think, by a lot of students. People want a lot of veterinary hours and they want a lot of animal hours. I had three-ish things on my application that I counted as leadership experience. So in my undergrad, I made sure that I got involved with my program student association. So I was on that class council or that program council for 3 years, and that was one of my main leadership experiences that I put on my application. And then I think the other main one that I had was I would work with students who were just in my program that needed help with specific classes. So it was kind of like tutoring, but kind of not because I wouldn't call it tutoring. It was more of just advice on what classes to take and things like that. And I put that as leadership experience as well. But yeah, I do think that leadership experience is just as important, if not more important, because the OVC admissions committee, they want to make sure that you're a good, well-rounded student. So having experience that is not just vet med and that is not just, vet related is really important for them to see. Oh, you feel like you're behind? Well, congratulations on technically being a sophomore. But basically, I wouldn't worry too much about being in high school and preparing for vet school. I found that a lot of my experience and a lot of my hours came from when I was in university. I did definitely put high school experience on my application, but I found that a lot of the experience that I used on my application came from university. Third year vet student, congrats. Equine vet. Oh, well, thank you so much for watching. And that's really interesting. I never thought about going into equine, so it's kind of cool to see other people thinking about their career path. Have you experienced imposter syndrome? Yes, definitely. For those of you who don't know, imposter syndrome is basically feeling like you don't belong in the vet program or feeling like they admitted you by accident. And it's something that OVC does a pretty good job of talking about when we first start, especially in our orientation. It's kind of one of the things that they drill into our head that you're probably going to feel. And if you don't, then you're lucky, but it's probably something that you're going to experience more than once. And yes, I definitely felt imposter syndrome a lot more in first year than this year. And honestly, how to deal with it, it's hard. I think it varies from person to person. For me, I would always go back and I would reread my acceptance letter. And it was just a nice reminder of the fact that I did get accepted into the program. And it kind of just took me back to that feeling of getting accepted and feeling proud of myself and feeling like I had accomplished this great thing. And anytime I would feel that imposter syndrome, it was just nice to kind of remember those feelings again. But yeah, imposter syndrome, definitely a real thing, definitely something you are probably going to experience. It's just important to realize that it is a real thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. Those feelings aren't true. You deserve to be in vet school, you deserve to get accepted, and they didn't admit you by accident. So that's definitely my tips for dealing with imposter syndrome because it is definitely a real thing. Going back to studying now. Yeah, definitely should also be studying, but I just finished class for the day, so I'm going to take a break and talk to you guys and answer more questions. Everyone who is watching, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming out. This is the first time I've done a live stream, and just having these questions already has been awesome, and I feel like it gives me a better chance to kind of connect with my audience and answer questions that are a little bit more personal. that I wouldn't necessarily be able to answer if I was just, replying under a video or something like that. So I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm glad you guys have been enjoying the channel. The response has been great. So it's been really nice to see that people are enjoying the content. And I agree, when I was applying to vet school, there was not a ton of vet YouTubers out there because I definitely looked for that and I looked to see if there was more advice. But that was one of the reasons why I started the channel, because I felt like people wanted to know because I wanted to know. Do you have any advice for high schoolers? Yeah, so I wouldn't worry too much about marks in high school just because vet schools don't really look at your high school marks at all. Um, my biggest tip for high school is honestly go out there and get as much experience as you can, because your marks are going to matter when you get into university. I found that I was a lot more focused on marks versus my experience throughout the school year. So I actually worked in a vet clinic when I was in high school, and to this day, that is still some of my most valuable experience. And the relationships that I felt built in that high school job have lasted me up until this day. And actually, both the vets that I used for my vet school application for the references, they were vets that I met in that high school job. So yeah, don't stress too much about marks. Obviously, just get the marks you need to get into your undergrad program that you want. But other than that, it's a great opportunity to get some good experience. What's the hardest part about vet school? Ooh. Honestly, it is partially time management because vet school is very different from undergrad. There's a lot more class time and there's a lot more content that's being thrown at you. In undergrad, I remember there were some days where I would have like 2 classes and then I would be done for the day and then I could study, where in vet school, we're pretty much in class from 8:30 to 5:30 every single day. So being able to manage that time, but then also being able to have a work-life balance has been, for me, I think the most challenging thing, because being in class all day, I want to kind of come home and I want to study, but also at the same time, I want to just sit there and watch Netflix. So kind of finding that balance and being able to juggle life, but then also being able to juggle school was probably one of the hardest things for me. And in terms of classes, I really struggled with physiology in first year. I don't know why, but it was just one of the classes that I didn't make sense in my head, basically. Have you done any placements abroad? No, I haven't done any placements. Well, okay, it wasn't really a placement, but I did go on a vet trip in my second year of undergrad, and it was with the program VITA. So we basically went, and it was a 2-week trip down to Costa Rica, and we did spay and neuter clinics for 6 days while we were down in Costa Rica. So that was a really awesome experience. In terms of placements for vet school, though, I'm hoping to do some of my externship in Ireland, depending on what's going on with the world at that point. But that's far down the road, so that'll be a future Amanda problem. How did you prepare for vet school? So, like I said, I had a clinic job in high school. So I started working at that vet clinic when I was I think I was in grade 10, or I was going into grade 10 when I first got that job. And I worked there all through high school. And like I said, I made some really good connections and I got some really good experience there. I also did my co op at that same clinic in high school. And that was also a really, really good opportunity. In terms of undergrad and how I prepared in undergrad, it was a big learning curve for me. I feel like I started out not strong in undergrad. My first 2 years were kind of a struggle, if I'm being honest. And it took me pretty much getting into my third year to kind of get into a rhythm and figure out what worked for me and what didn't work for me in terms of study methods and how I needed to apply myself to kind of prepare for my vet school application. In terms of prepping for my vet school application or my vet school interview, this kind of ties into the question by Mia, if I got in on my first application or not, and I did not get in on my first time applying. And the reason why I felt like this really helped me prepare was because the second application cycle that I applied for, I had already gone through the application process. So for me, it was really helpful because I knew what I was going into the second time I applied. And I felt like it was just so much easier going through the application because I knew what to expect. Um, I didn't get an interview my first application cycle, so I didn't really know what to expect for that. But in terms of preparing for that, I read the book by Rollins that I will try and link for you guys. I forgot to do that. And then I would just practice with friends. I would sit down and honestly talk to a camera and record myself and figure out what I needed to work on for my interview. And I didn't prep a ton, I'll be honest, just because it felt really unnatural to me. But those are kind of some of the things that I did to help prepare for vet school. So, no, I didn't get in my first application cycle. It took me 2 times. Is anatomy really hard to study for? Anatomy is one of those classes that I think you kind of love or you kind of hate. I personally, I liked anatomy. I will say I liked anatomy in terms of studying for it. Anatomy dissections and anatomy class, I didn't like necessarily, but overall, I enjoyed anatomy. And I think it is a lot of memorization. And I think that's why I enjoyed it because I like memorizing things. I find that a lot easier to study. But for someone who doesn't really have that brain to just memorize things and needs to understand things, anatomy can be a harder subject to study for. But yeah, I think it really is personal preference if you like or don't like anatomy. Oh, and then I guess the other thing that I kind of wanted to touch on was when you're going through the application cycle, it's super important not to compare yourself to other people. I know in my program specifically, so I did animal biology at the University of Guelph. Most of the people in my program wanted to get into vet school. So, going through that application process, it was pretty competitive because a lot of the people that you're surrounded by are also applying to vet school. And I think it was really important for me to remember to just kind of block everyone else out and just focus on my application and focus on what I needed to do to get into vet school because it was really easy to kind of look around and see other people and see what they were doing and if they were volunteering a ton or what their marks were, and it can really stress you out. So that's kind of one of the tips that I do have is I would just honestly focus on your application because what you need to do to get into vet school and what other people need to do to get in are going to be two completely different things. There's no set formula on how to get into vet school. There's no rule book. So, I would just focus on yourself and focus on things that you really think are going to enhance your application and what you feel like you will find valuable in terms of vet experience. Well, I'm glad you guys actually came on and had questions. I was worried I was gonna sit here and no one would come, and then I would just have to talk to a computer screen all by myself. But I just applied this month in the US. Congratulations, that's so exciting. Yes, I definitely feel the stressful part because you just can't stop thinking about it. Honestly, so for us at OBC, we applied in January. We submitted our application February 1st is when our application was due, and then we don't find out if we get an interview until April. So I feel that. I remember thinking like constantly, am I going to get in? Am I going to get an interview? If I get an interview, then what? Um, but I think the most important thing, because you will drive yourself crazy if you just continually think about it, is to just try and distract yourself, try and do other things that don't relate to vet med at all. Because yeah, like I said, you will drive yourself crazy, but it is a nerve-wracking thing for sure. I will say though, I have never been as stressed in vet school as I was applying to vet school. So it will get better, don't worry. But yeah, the wait time can definitely be stressful. What kind of vet do I want to be after I graduate? That is a very good question. Right now, I'm kind of leaning toward government vet, potentially small animal vet with a specialization in dentistry. Um, with that being said, it changes every couple months. So I still have almost 3 years of school left. So by the time I'm done, that could change quite a bit. Oh, geez, you apply in November? That's crazy. Yeah, the start of our application was due in November, but then the final part of our application was due in February. So from the time that we're done our application to the time we find out is only a couple months. What would a government vet do? That's a really good question because I also had no idea until one of the vets that I worked with at a small animal clinic went into government. Um, and there's two branches, I guess you could say, of what government vets will do. A lot of it is regulatory affairs or quality control in terms of enforcing animal welfare laws and things like that. The vet that I work with, she specifically deals with animals being brought in and out of the country. So if people are traveling with their pets, they need to get certain certificates and they need certain um, paperwork that they need to fill out. So she deals with that specifically. But yeah, there's a lot of government jobs out there that are vet related that I didn't even know about before I got into vet school. And then I did my research and I was like, wow. And in general, honestly, there's a lot of vet jobs out there that I had no idea existed until I got into vet school and did some research. And I think a lot of people feel like it's either just small animal or large animal, but there's a lot of career paths out there after you graduate. And why dentistry? That is a good question. And honestly, it's just been something I've always been, I guess, interested in is what you would call it. When I was working at the small animal clinic in high school and they were doing dentistries, I would just really enjoy watching them. I thought it was really cool work. And since then, I've joined the dentistry club in vet school. And just hearing about the talks that we go to and hearing about different cases is just something that's always interested me. So that's why dentistry. Are there any online websites that can help you study for exams? In terms of studying for anatomy, I found VIN really helpful. That's the Veterinary Information Network. As a vet student, we actually get like a free subscription or a free membership, and they have a 3D anatomy simulator, I think is what they call it, or just like a 3D anatomy module that you can go through. And you can actually select different species and you can select different body systems, and it will actually like highlight the specific parts of the body or specific organs that you're looking for. So I found that really helpful to study for anatomy in my first year. In terms of other websites, I personally didn't use a ton of like external resources. I found my profs were pretty good at just providing the information that we needed to know. So I mostly just studied off my lecture slides or any like supplemental information that they provided. But yeah, VIN is a lifesaver and VIN is just really cool to look through. They talk about different cases, interesting topics in vet med and things like that. So sometimes if I'm bored, I'll go through and read cases on VIN, and it's cool to look at. Which books do you recommend to study anatomy? I know there's a textbook that everyone uses. I think it's by Pasquini. Let me look that up right now. Yeah, it's called Textbook of Veterinary Anatomy by Dice. So that's one of the main ones that people use. And then I know there's that other one too that people use. And I think it's, I thought it was by Pasquini, but I could be wrong. But I know the textbook by Dice is really helpful. And I think they also have flashcards that you can use that go along with their textbook. And I studied off those flashcards for the first couple weeks of vet school until I found out that that wasn't really my style. But I believe those are also by Dice. Are there any controversial topics you recommend looking into, especially before interviews? Yeah, for sure. So depending on where you live, the regulatory body for vets should have a page that kind of talks about upcoming topics in vet med or important topics in vet med. So the College of Veterinarians of Ontario, which is where I live, they have an entire page talking about certain topics that are either controversial or that there are rules and regulations about. Some of those include declawing, humane euthanasia, ear cropping, tail docking, things like that. So those are all things that I went through and I read about, and it's nice to just see. I think they call them the position statements. So it's just basically what the College of Veterinarians position is on certain topics that are either considered controversial or new and upcoming topics in vet med. So that was also one of the things that I did when I was preparing for my interviews is I would go through and I would read all of those and see if my views aligned with those views, and just kind of to see what the position statements on those topics were. And I will see, I'm still looking for that link to that textbook and I can't seem to find it. But it's called Introduction to Veterinary Medical Ethics. That's what it's called. How do you balance your work and rest schedule? And could you get a part-time job while studying? So basically, my work and rest schedule, I feel like, is a lot better balanced in vet school than it was in undergrad. And the reason why I say this is because I felt like in undergrad, I was always stressed about getting the best marks because I needed to get into vet school. Whereas now that I'm in vet school, I feel like that pressure is kind of taken off. So I'll be honest, in vet school, I'm normally in bed by like 11 o'clock every night and I get up at like 8 o'clock every morning. So I feel like my sleep schedule is a lot better in vet school. And I think honestly part of it is because my time management skills are better in vet school. But yeah, I think you need to find out what works best for you. Some people can go off 5 hours of sleep and are completely fine, and some people can't. So it really is just finding a routine that works best for you. In terms of a part-time job, again, it's going to be very personal preference. I personally wouldn't get a job just because I feel like with extracurriculars and with vet school and with a social life, that in itself is enough to balance for me. However, there are definitely people who have part-time jobs in vet school and are still very successful and can manage it all, and I envy them because they clearly have their life together. But yeah, so again, it is personal preference. You can definitely get one, and then if you feel like it's not working for you, adjust your schedule based on that. But for me personally, I don't have one, and I don't feel like I should get one. What makes OVC the fourth best in North America? Yeah, honestly, I don't actually know how they do the rankings. Like, I'm not sure if there's actual criteria that they base the rankings for. So I can kind of only answer this from a student perspective and my experience at OVC. But in terms of the professors at OVC, I guess it's hard too because I don't really have any experience to compare it to. Like, I've never been to another vet school. I've only been to OVC. So I guess I can only tell you kind of my experience being in OVC and being a part of the OVC community. But our professors are awesome. We have, amazing board certified surgeons who teach our lectures even in first and second year. So I feel like we get exposed to a lot of really cool things very early on. OVC, I feel like, also offers a lot of opportunities for growth in the veterinary profession outside of class time. We have so many clubs that you can join. We have extracurriculars that you can join. I'm on the hockey team, which was interesting to me. But I think OVC just does a really good job of kind of encouraging their students to figure out what path in vet med they want to take and what is going to be best for them. And recently, they've kind of shifted their curriculum to focus more on that work-life balance. And they do want their students to have a life outside of school. They do want their students to kind of take a step back and realize that vet school is important, but your mental health and kind of your sanity going through the program is also super important. So yeah, those are just some of the reasons why I love OVC. I don't know if that is what necessarily makes them ranked fourth best in North America. And I don't know actually how they rank those schools, but I love OVC. My experience has been incredible, and I've just felt like I've been very included in the OVC community and in that OVC lifestyle since the day I stepped onto campus. So like I said, I don't really know I don't really know how they rank it, but in my opinion, it's awesome. So yeah, no worries. Do I live on campus or in an apartment? So I live in a townhouse with a couple other people in my program. I lived on campus in my first year of undergrad, and then ever since then, I've been off campus. Um, with that being said, though, I don't live very far from the university. Like, my drive to school is not long at all. So living on campus or living off campus, like I said, again, it's kind of personal preference, but I personally enjoy being off campus. I think it just gives me a little bit of space from OVC. I spend, 8 to 9 hours a day on campus, so it's nice to come home to my own room. Obviously, this year it's a little bit different, and we're at home most of the time. So being on campus or off campus, you're mostly in your bedroom. um, but yeah, I think if your school offers on-campus housing that is affordable and you can definitely go for it because it's convenient. You're right on campus. But I guess some people, me personally, I like being off campus just because it gives me a little bit of space from OVC. But yeah, that's a good question. In first year of undergrad, though, I would definitely recommend living on campus if you can. For me, it was just super easy, like going to classes and stuff and being able to wake up like 10 minutes before my class and still get there on time, which I guess for online learning is kind of what I'm doing right now anyway. But what's the best way to pay for housing? Um, Again, personal preference. I know through, I think in undergrad, uh, like residence tuition included a meal plan and it also included like your residence fees. So it ended up being pretty comparable to what you would pay as rent. Um, for me, I had a part-time job all the way through high school, so I used a lot of my funds to pay for housing in that sense. Um, but loans are also available. OSAP is available in Ontario, at least. That's the Ontario Education Assistance Program. So you can use OSAP for your schooling, or I know some people use it to pay for rent as well. But yeah, like I said, personal preference. It kind of depends on your financial situation and kind of how you're doing in that sense. Well, I wanted to say thank you so much for all of the questions, guys. It's been awesome to kind of interact with you and answer some questions in real time instead of just like commenting on a video. And yeah, it's been really awesome to interact, and I've been really happy with how the channel has grown. And I feel like it's grown faster than I ever thought, and it's so cool to see like the veterinary community that's online and getting to interact with vet students or future vet students all over the world. So that's been super cool, and I just wanted to say thanks. How do you get equipment for vet school from this? Oh, okay. So most of our vet equipment that we needed, so coveralls, stethoscope, pen lights, surgical kits, things like that, we all got from the school. So before we started in first year, they actually sent out like an order form of things that we needed to order. So I think it included our coveralls, our scrubs, our surgical kit. I'm trying to think what else. Like our pen lights, our thermometers, things like that. Those were all included. And then I can only speak for my experience at OVC, but OVC, we actually get gifted a stethoscope in first year, as well as our blue coat, which is what we wear to all of our professional labs. And then, and our Daisy was also gifted to us, which is what we practice our sutures on. So everything that you mostly need for vet school, you can buy through like your vet program or your vet organization. Some things that I bought outside of like vet school, I bought like a silicone suture pad, which was not ordered through school. I just bought it off Amazon. But majority of things, if you need it for vet school, they'll either provide you a link for where to buy it, or they'll actually organize an order for everyone in school. But again, that's specific to OVC. I'm not sure how other schools do it. Aw, well, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Alexa and Ash, that's awesome. I'm so glad you're enjoying the channel, and I'm glad that, you guys have been enjoying the videos and you found them useful. How should I study for the NAVLE by the first day of class? That is a good question because I'm in second year and I haven't even started studying for the NAVLE yet. I think the way that OVC recommends you do it is you should start studying in, I think, your summer going into fourth year or in third year sometimes. I know there's like a vet prep. I think it's vet prep. Okay, this answer to this question is not going to be good because I honestly have no idea. I haven't started yet, but when I get to studying for the NAVLE, I will make sure to update you guys because I'll be learning while you're learning, basically. Are you good at suturing yet? No, not even close. It's not, you said you're not a natural, and honestly, I don't know if anyone is a natural at suturing because it's the motions that you're going through are not normal. They're not natural. And like I said, it really is all practice. I actually filmed a video this summer about how to suture, like a suturing video, and I watched it back and I realized I was doing like 3 or 4 things completely wrong. So don't get discouraged that you're suturing wrong because it really is, it's a practice thing and you've just got to do it a bunch of times to get it, that muscle memory into your head. Now in second year, the patterns that we learned in first year, I feel like I'm getting pretty good at, but they also introduced like 3 or 4 new patterns for us to learn this year. And those ones, I feel like I'm a fish out of water all over again. So don't worry about not being a natural at suturing because I don't know if anyone is. Do you get to work or volunteer at large or small animal hospitals or the cancer center? So I had a job at OVC this summer, and there are vet student positions, I think they're what they're called, and you can apply for them to work in the OVC clinics, either in small or large or in the cancer center for the summers. Some of the clubs that are at OVC also offer shadowing opportunities where you can sign up and you can go in and shadow, like the avian and exotic service or the nutrition service or the internal med service. Obviously this year with things that are going on and, you know, disease protocols and stuff like that, we haven't been able to be in the clinic very often, if at all. So this year, those opportunities are kind of limited. But in terms of job opportunities, I think they're offering those for next summer. I'm not sure. I hope so because I would like to apply to some of them. But yeah, it's been a limited year this year in terms of what we can do in terms of volunteer experience and things like that. But hopefully in future years, it will get back to normal. I know you said a variety of experience is better, but we still recommend a minimum number of hours for each category. So in terms of like a minimum number of hours, you really have to check your vet school because I do know some schools in the States do have a minimum number of hours that you need. OVC doesn't have that minimum number. I think it really is personal preference, and I think you need to figure out what that minimum number of hours is going to be for you to get a good experience out of wherever you're volunteering. So I think just like as a rough estimate, I think in terms of shadowing a vet, I had close to 50 to 70 hours shadowing vets directly. But with that in mind, I also worked at that vet clinic for almost 4 years. So those hours obviously add up, but I felt like at the end of that work experience, I had a good relationship with the vets, or I had a good enough relationship with the vets that I could ask them for a reference letter, and I knew it was going to be a positive one. If you feel like you work with a vet and you click with them right off the bat and you've worked, 10 hours with them and you feel like you can ask them for a good reference, then absolutely. Or if you work with a vet for, let's say, 7 hours, it's 1 day of shadowing in large animal, and you realize you do not like large animal whatsoever, then don't feel like you need to go out and get more large animal experience. That's why it's hard to say what a minimum number would be, because I think it really is personal experience and what you want to get out of your volunteering experience. I knew I did not want to go into equine medicine, so I rode horses all through, high school and undergrad. So I had an idea of what that world is like, but I never shadowed an equine vet whatsoever because I just knew I didn't want to go into that. So yeah, sorry that's a super vague answer, but it really is like personal preference for what you want to get out of your volunteering or your work experience kind of thing. Um, huh. Okay, so someone asked if you could say the level of medicine being given at a big hospital like OVC or Animal Health Partners is comparable to a human hospital. Um, Honestly, I'm not really sure how to answer that. It's Do you mean in terms of like patient care that we give or in terms of like the experience we get? Because I definitely think so at OVC, it is very similar to what a human hospital is. We have a bunch of different services. We have an internal medicine service, we have a neurology service. So it does resemble what a normal hospital would be like. In terms of patient care, I think it's obviously patient care for animals is going to be a lot different to patient care for humans just because our patients don't talk. Um, but working at OVC this summer and working in the companion animal departments, I've never worked at a hospital before, but like a human hospital before, but working at OVC this summer gave me a really good opportunity to, I don't want to say brush up on my patient care, but really focus on patient care and focus on really providing a good environment and a good experience for the patients that I dealt with. Um, so, yeah, obviously, there's going to be differences compared to human hospitals and human medicine. Um, but yeah, I feel like OVC is one of the places where patient care is a top priority. We are a fear-free certified hospital, so it's one of the things that we place really high at the top of our list is giving our patients a good experience, and making sure that we really look out for those needs when we're treating them. Sorry, I don't know if that really answered your question or not, but um, a few days, not 18 hours out of it. Oh, yeah, so even if you've only volunteered with a vet for, say, 8 hours, you can definitely still put that on your application. I would definitely say 18 hours is a significant amount of time. The only thing that I would say about that is that every volunteer or work experience that you put on your application, you need to have a validator for. So if you work directly with a vet, you need to have them as a validator. So you need their contact information, and it's basically just so that the admissions committee can look at your application and actually call those people to make sure that you did those hours or not. Um, I would say so for me, I used all the vets that I work with directly as validators, and the only time that they really call is if they see something on your application that looks suspicious. So if you said you worked like 700 hours with a vet and they call the vet and the vet is like, no, I only worked with them for 4 hours, then your application is just not going to get looked at after that. Um, but yeah, if you have a good relationship with that vet that you worked the 18 hours with, and if they're willing to be a validator on your application, then yeah, 100%. Definitely put it on. I feel like even if you didn't like the way he communicated with owners, or even if you didn't, um, feel like you got that positive experience out of that application, now you at least know what you don't want to look for in a practice, or now you know how you don't want to communicate with clients. So even though it maybe wasn't a positive experience in your mind, it still taught you a lesson and it still taught you something about the veterinary profession. So I would definitely put that on your application, if he's willing to be a validator or not, or if you want to ask him to be a validator. So yeah, I counted hours all the way back to high school. The only thing I will say about that though is that I think for each category on your application, now this is OVC specific again, you only have 6 different spots that you can put experience in. So if you have more than 6 vets that you shadowed, I would put the most relevant 6 or the most important 6 that you volunteered with. But if you have space on your application, definitely put it. Okay, well, I feel like we got a lot of good questions asked today, and I hope the answers that I gave were at least a little bit helpful. Um, it's kind of hard when people are not applying to OVC and they ask specific questions because I only have the experience applying to OVC. So I think a lot of my answers are kind of specific to OVC or my experience in general, um, and may not be super helpful, but I hope you at least got something out of this live stream if it wasn't even, your questions answered or anything. But I hope you guys enjoyed just kind of hanging out and talking to me for a little bit. I liked it. I thought it was fun. I feel like this might be something I do more often. We can talk about the application process, or we can even talk about just other things that related, whether it be how to study in first year, some of my things that I experienced in first year that I would recommend. But yeah, if you guys liked the live stream, definitely let me know because we can definitely do more of them because I really enjoyed it. I like interacting with you guys more than just kind of talking to a camera and then hearing or seeing your comments afterwards. I feel like this is more of like a personal experience, even though I am talking to a camera. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. So hopefully there will be more after this. Oh, thank you. Anyone else out there who's studying, also definitely good luck studying with you guys too. If anyone is applying, good luck to you guys as well. Oh, Trinity just joined. Do you have any questions before I go? I'm probably going to wrap this up shortly. But yeah, if anyone else has any last questions, we can definitely go over those right now. And yeah, thanks to everyone who came and watched. It would be awesome. Can I apply without an undergrad degree? So to OVC, you need an undergrad degree. I'm not actually sure what other schools are like. That is the one thing that I feel like I'm kind of limited in answering, is that I only have experienced the OVC application process. So in terms of OVC specifically, you do need an undergrad degree to apply, or at least part of an undergrad degree. Did I ever take a marine bio class? No, I didn't take a marine bio class, but the University of Guelph has a marine biology program, and I had friends in it, and they absolutely loved it. So if you're thinking about taking one, I would recommend. So yeah, if anyone else has, who was your fave undergrad professor? I'm in third year. Have you taken a class with Andy Robinson yet? He, I think, was probably like one of my all-time favorite professors in all of undergrad. He was awesome. I loved him and I loved his class. My undergrad degree was animal biology at the University of Guelph. Oh, so your undergrad or your major is agriculture science. Again, OVC specific, but we have a ton of people actually in my program who came from an ag science background, or who came from, programs other than animal biology. You definitely don't have to take a certain undergrad program to get in, as long as you have the appropriate prereqs to apply. But like I said, I think it's school specific what those prereqs are. I know for OVC, there's like a biochem prereq, there's 2 humanities prereqs, 2 biological sciences, a cell bio, and a genetics. That sounds right. It's been a while since I've looked through my application, but as long as you have those certain requirements or those certain prereq classes, it really doesn't matter what program you come from. So ag sci should be good to go. But yes, you definitely, depending on the school, you do need specific classes. I know some of the schools in the States or overseas, you need an organic chemistry class. But yeah, OVC does not recommend, or does not that they don't recommend, they don't require organic chem class. So definitely depends. Someone's piecing out. Well, thanks so much for watching and joining. It was awesome having you guys here. Best tip for applying. Let me see. My best tip for applying. Don't compare yourself to other people. You will drive yourself crazy. And don't leave your application to the last minute. My first time applying, I submitted the day it was due, And I was so stressed that something was going to go wrong. I was so stressed that my internet was going to crash and I wasn't going to be able to submit my application. So the second time around, I made sure I had that application done super early and I paced myself. It can be a big application process. So giving yourself time to kind of go through the process and not stressing yourself about it will just help your application. So those are kind of my two biggest tips for applying. Okay, I think I'm gonna stay on for like another 5 more minutes. So if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to ask them now. I kind of feel like I'm a professor. Now I know what they're talking about when they just talk to a camera. What are your suggestions for studying for tests, especially in vet school? Um, so for me personally, I have a couple study methods that I find really work for me. Um, but like I said, everyone studies differently. Everyone is going to kind of apply themselves differently in vet school. I think you need to figure out what your studying strengths are. And if you just Google like my, I think it's like my studying style or like my learning style. That's what you should Google. It'll tell you how you learn or how you best learn. So for me, I'm a very visual learner and I'm kind of an auditory learner. Those are like my two highest ones that I am. So I try and mold my studying, I guess you could say, in ways that are visual and auditory. So I really like vid on study methods, please. I have a video on my channel talking about how to study for anatomy, physiology, and clinical medicine. So if you want to check that out for sure. If there are other classes you want to know how I study for, let me know and I will make another video on those. But yeah, it really is personal preference how you study. I like using tables and diagrams whenever I can because, like I said, I'm a visual learner. And then in terms of like my physical like skills, in terms of like suturing or physical exams, practice, repetition, so much repetition. I hate chem. Can I still be a vet? If it makes you feel better, I think I got a 61 in my first year chemistry course, and I'm in vet school. So I did not do well in chem. I guess it depends on if your school needs a chemistry prereq. We didn't need a chemistry prereq. We needed a biochem prereq, I think it was. So I took biochem in second year and I did a lot better in that course. But yeah, chemistry itself, I did not do well in and did not enjoy either. Did you go to vet school on a scholarship? So I didn't get a scholarship when I went into vet school, like in terms of the first year I was in. However, there are scholarships that you can apply to through the vet program as you go through. So there are entrance scholarships, I believe. I didn't receive any, but there are definitely a lot of scholarships, or there's a lot of like financial need bursaries that you can apply for that I have applied for and have definitely helped in terms of paying for my tuition. Is the debt is the same as human med school? I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't know what human med school costs. In terms of vet school in Canada, though, I believe by the end of my degree, I'll have paid close to $40,000, maybe 50. That's just math off the top of my head. That could be completely wrong. Maybe don't quote me on that. But yeah, so I guess that depends on what human med school is like, because I'm not really sure, to be honest. How did you get good grades in undergrad? Again, I think it's really finding out what study methods work best for you, because my grades in first and second year were not great. However, my grades in second year and then third year and then fourth year got better every single year. And I think it's because I figured out what study methods really worked for me. And then I also took classes that I not knew I would do good in, but knew that I would be interested in, just because I felt like I would do better in them if I was interested in the topic. So that's kind of how I kept on top of my grades / got the grades I needed to get into vet school. What keeps you motivated? Because yes, you're right. It can be extremely stressful. And I think for me, it's the fact that I've wanted to be a vet since I was super little. I think I was 6 when I decided I wanted to be a vet. So whenever I get stressed in vet school or whenever I feel like I've had a particularly bad day, I just remember that little Amanda wanted to be a vet, and little Amanda would always think about being a vet in the future, and that definitely keeps me motivated. Also, just knowing how hard I worked in undergrad to get to where I am, even in high school, to get into vet school definitely keeps me motivated because, like you said, vet school can be stressful, vet school can be a lot, but reminding yourself of how hard you work to kind of get to where you are today is a huge motivator, for sure. Okay, I'm gonna take last questions if anyone has them right now. If not, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to you guys for coming out and watching. It's been really awesome getting to answer your questions and interact with you guys. Like I said, I hope you found it helpful. If not, hopefully you just enjoyed the company because this was a great distraction from studying. We had class from 8:30 to 4:30 today, so just kind of getting on here and talking to you guys has been a nice little stress reliever. I really enjoyed it. So hopefully there will be more live streams in the future. And I don't see any more questions. So with that, I'm just going to uh, say goodbye, I think. And again, thank you. Thank you guys so much for watching. And thank you guys so much for asking the questions. Like I said, I hope it helped. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end it now. Hope you guys have a good rest of the day or a good night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, and yes, I'm definitely gonna save this. It'll be up on my channel, so you can watch it later if you wanted. But yeah, thanks so much, guys. Oh.